Hey yo everyone, I just watched the new Superman movie last week and I loved it. I thought it was a fun iteration of the character and one that truly embodied the spirit of Superman, just doing good things for the sake of doing good. Since James Gunn's DC cornerstone hero is blowing up the summer box office, it got me thinking, when the heck are we gonna get another Superman game? Looking back at the Pandapedia here, it's been nearly 20 years since Superman Returns, the last time Superman starred in his own video game. Obviously, video game development and technology has grown a lot since 2006, so I think it's time we take a crack at Kal-El again. So today, I want to talk about Superman and how I would develop a game around him. Keep in mind, this is just me, another dumb nerd on the internet, giving his take on how a Superman game should be. It won't be perfect, but then again, no game ever is. As always, if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. Alright, let's get it. Alrighty, so let's ask the million-dollar question. Is a truly great Superman game even possible? Despite his rocky at best video game history, I'm gonna say yes, a great Superman game is entirely possible. Let's start with the story. First and foremost, the character of Superman needs to be conveyed in a way that is meaningful to both fans and casual gamers alike. That means he needs to be a good guy that fully understands what he is capable of and still decides to use it to help people. As fun as the Injustice games are, I want to see a version of Superman that isn't trying to tear the Justice League apart limb from limb. A character that will stop a speeding train or rescue a cat stuck in a tree. A character that is willing to risk his life to protect a stranger he's never met. And that's where I think this story can begin. I know a lot of people see Superman as a kind of 2D character, he's not as complicated as a character like a Batman or an Iron Man. He's just a simple farm kid who happens to be the most powerful person on the planet. While maybe he's not as universally relatable as a character like Spider-Man, I think the writers for this game could really use that to their advantage. You see, in literature, there's this narrative structure known as the hero's journey. The hero's journey is a literary device that has basically become the blueprint for modern adventure storytelling. Within this scheme, our protagonist goes from their normal day-to-day life and then has some sort of call to adventure. Let's use Star Wars: A New Hope as an example here. Luke is just a seemingly regular kid on Tatooine who lives on a humble moisture farm. Some otherworldly characters appear and insist that he take them to the rebels, his call to adventure, but he refuses, saying he'll only take them as far as Mos Eisley. From here, he goes through almost all of the steps in the hero's journey. He suffers loss, he decides to join the adventure, he meets new characters and challenges, and by the end of the movie, he is changed into a triumphant hero. He's no longer just a farm kid from Tatooine, but instead the savior of the Rebel Alliance and perhaps the entire galaxy. While this is great for building a relatable character, I think the hero's journey can be used inversely to create a compelling plot for our Superman. Maybe he won't be as relatable as Spider-Man here, but that's okay. Superman is a character we don't necessarily have to relate to. He's a character that we can instead look up to, a character we can aspire to be like. There's this really great video essay about Captain America Civil War that I'll link below, but it's basically where I'm getting this idea from. Superman doesn't need to grow as a character or learn some lesson about power and responsibility. James Gunn has already established that Superman is all about justice and doing the right thing, always. So, how do we make a perfect protagonist change for the better? That's the thing here. We don't. Clark doesn't need to change because he's already the gold standard. Instead of having Clark go through all of this character growth in the game, we would instead have the world around him change. Let me explain. Our Superman shouldn't win by changing or evolving as a person. He should win by standing strong in his beliefs, his ideology that everyone has good in them and that the world is a beautiful place full of hope. He knows what's right, what needs to be done, and he does it. He doesn't change his virtues, no matter the cost, and that's what I want to see in a Superman game. A version of Clark Kent that is willing to put everything on the line to uphold his moral code. What happens when Superman has to help people that others would consider undeserving? What if Superman has to choose between his personal relationships and the rest of Metropolis? How does a character that represents all that is good respond to a world that is constantly trying to beat him down, to change him? That's what I want to see in this game. a simple character fighting his way through a complicated world. Now, let's talk about this complicated world. James Gunn made the bold decision to launch the DCU into a universe that already has superheroes and villains. While Superman may be the strongest of the bunch, he's not the first. Gunn also mentioned a while back that he was considering ways to incorporate DC video games into the DCU canon.
It's one of, our jobs, mine and Peter's, is to come in and make sure the DCU is connected in film, television, gaming, and animation. That the characters are consistent, played by the same actors, and it works within one story.
So what I'm thinking is, why don't we use this Superman game to flush out the already established DCU and showcase Clark's otherworldly origins? He said before that there are some superhero backstories that we just don't need to see again, and while I agree to some extent, the hardcore nerd in me still wants to see it anyway. Imagine a game where Clark is already the Man of Steel and has been for a while. A brief tutorial could showcase him taking on some sort of mini boss enemy, perhaps a Brainiac or a Solomon Grundy or something. In this tutorial, we'll get to experience the full breadth of Superman's powers: super strength, speed, heat vision, ice breath, and of course, the ability to fly. Traversal in this game will be a major key to its success, but we'll expand on that a bit later. The tutorial will have the player use all of Superman's iconic abilities to defeat the boss and really display just how OP the character is. I think it's really important to set the tone right away in the game, kind of like how Insomniac started Spider-Man 2018. We get an immediate vibe on how this Spider-Man will act and what we can expect as the story progresses. Now, after Superman saves the city, we gotta do something to balance the game out and make the player a bit more vulnerable, something to really give them a challenge during their playthrough. In some previous video game iterations, Superman would be invulnerable, so the challenge would be protecting other characters or the city itself. Instead of Superman losing health, Metropolis's health status would drain. While that's a cool concept, it doesn't really make for a fun game. Sure, this is probably how the real Clark Kent would feel doing his day-to-day Superman stuff, but I think we want to have the player in full control of the character, not micromanaging Metropolis. Having to always babysit NPCs and manage a big open world would get pretty boring pretty fast. Plus, having Superman be invulnerable means the mission variety will basically all have to be protection or escort missions, which is not ideal. So let's take a page out of Metroid's playbook. Samus is also a ridiculously overpowered badass in her games, and that is established immediately in the tutorials. However, in Metroid Prime, for example, Samus has her powers stripped from her and she must regain her abilities throughout the game. I think this is the route we need to go with for Superman. Perhaps Lex Luthor sets up some elaborate scheme to poison Clark with kryptonite, nearly killing him, but instead just draining him of his abilities. As the story continues, Clark will begin to heal and regain strength, unlocking his lost abilities along the way. Maybe to start out, he just has the ability to fly and punch something really hard or something, I don't know. Which brings me to the flying and gameplay. This is the tough part. Let's start with the flying. This needs to be a front and center priority for the devs. Superman's flying is just as critical as Spider-Man's web slinging. Sure, there's more to the heroes than just that, but these abilities are iconic and are necessary to traverse the open world. Not only does Clark need to be able to fly fluidly, but it also needs to give a sense of speed to the player, something that at least somewhat encaptures that feeling of faster than a speeding bullet. Thankfully, in the 20 years since the last official Superman game, we've gotten to see plenty examples of great flying in video games. The most recent ones that come to mind are Just Cause 4 and, honestly, the LEGO DC games. I think the LEGO games have a fantastic feeling of flying, but they're also a bit limited because of their visuals. Just Cause 4 has a better look and pretty dope flying, but it's also limited because of its visuals. It's a lot more intensive on a console to render 4K detailed graphics at high speeds than it would be for something a bit more cartoonish. Does this mean our Superman game should go for a more stylistic look? Maybe. I'm no developer, clearly, so I'm not sure how far devs can push the flight speed before they reach the max rendering speed of photorealistic assets on a console. But based on how fast web swinging is in Spider-Man 2 or how fast levels load in a game like Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart, I'd say that ridiculous speeds should be doable, or at least the feeling of it should be doable. Once the flying is nailed down, we can turn our attention to combat. I know that Arkham style combat is really popular and for good reason, but I think Superman needs a separate combat design entirely. His powers are quite varied, so copy and pasting Batman's moveset onto the Son of Krypton would be a disservice in my mind. I think Superman should have some base moves that can be used at any time, such as a dodge button and light and heavy attacks. Then, for Superman's special abilities, such as Ice Breath and Heat Vision, maybe the devs can borrow a mechanic from another Warner Brothers game, Hogwarts Legacy. I like the idea of holding a button that will then change the ability map to certain other buttons. Like in Hogwarts Legacy, you use R2 to access your special spells. I think this could be incorporated into a Superman game by giving Clark special moves, like a ranged heat vision attack, a crowd control ice breath move, maybe a dash attack, or some sort of spin move to stun enemies. There are a lot of options here, and I think players should be able to choose the abilities they want to use. That way, the devs can come up with a bunch of Superman combos without restriction. Let the players decide which moves to use and which ones don't fit their particular power fantasy of Superman. Now, last but not least, let's talk about the game's world building and potential developers. If this game is to be canon to James Gunn's DCU, then I think it can be used to help flesh out the expanded cinematic universe. It might be a bit limited, considering the developers would have to be restricted to what Gunn wants his version of Superman to be like, but after seeing the movie, I'm sure the extra effort will be worth it. In my mind, this Superman game would feature Clark slowly regaining his powers, similar to that Metroid game we were talking about earlier. Except here, I think the game would benefit from copying Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order a bit. In that game, every time Cal learns a new ability, we see a flashback to go along with it, where his master is teaching him how to use the Force and why a Jedi must use it for good. In the Superman game, Clark could learn these abilities and we could be given a flashback of a younger version of him first discovering his powers. Maybe he's just using them to mess around or something, and the writers can find a way to incorporate Ma and Pa Kent into the story in a meaningful way. After all, these are the characters that make Superman who he is. He didn't grow up into the smartest or wealthiest family, he just had two parents who instilled a strong moral compass within him. And I think emphasizing that part of Superman's origin would pair great with each new ability he unlocks. Continuing on the world building though, I would love for this Superman game to be an open world adventure loaded with other character appearances. It doesn't even have to be the heavy hitters like a Batman or Wonder Woman, it could be lesser known characters who normally don't get the spotlight like Mr. Terrific did in the movie. So I'm thinking for the game, we could see some more of the characters that Gunn doesn't have any particular plans for. Lesser known characters that would help the DCU feel more lived in. I'm talking Atom Man, Chemo, the Crime Professor, Sodom and Gomorrah. Maybe there's even a mini boss fight against a character like Lobo, who is being portrayed by Jason Momoa in the upcoming Supergirl film. Just a short cameo, but something that helps flesh out the character for us diehard fans. Or you could even have Superman interacting with some already established heroes like Mr. Terrific again or Hawkgirl. Besides cameo appearances, I would also really like to see this version of Metropolis dotted with iconic DC landmarks. I know Suicide Squad wasn't the best game ever, but I think Rocksteady did a fantastic job with the world design. Metropolis is loaded with DC Easter eggs, including the Hall of Justice. I think Insomniac's Spider-Man does a great job of this too. Like everywhere you look throughout New York City, there's a mention of another Marvel character, whether it be Nelson and Murdoch or the Sanctum Sanctorum. The Spider-Man games do a great job of showing off a world that already has established superheroes and villains.
Cool window, but I always get the feeling something strange is going on in that place.
Plus, with Metropolis being a fictional city, the devs can hopefully have some freedom in tweaking it a bit to fit the needs of the game. And speaking of devs, let's talk about some possible suitors here. This is a bit tough. We've already talked ad nauseum as to why a Superman game is so difficult to pull off, so finding the right studio for this is critical. Some obvious names come to mind like Avalanche Studios, who developed Just Cause, or Rocksteady, who are DC's best in-house studio developing the incredible Arkham trilogy and the not-so-incredible Suicide Squad game that we mentioned earlier. If I had to place a bet on it, I would say that Rocksteady is the most likely candidate for a Superman game if one were to ever get the go-ahead. But let's get creative here and say that Warner Bros. Decides to outsource the IP to another studio. If that were to happen, I think there's one developer that I would be interested in the most for this game: Radical Entertainment. If you don't know who that is, I can't blame you. They haven't made their own game in over a decade, but their last game, Prototype 2 is a great highlight reel of what they're capable of. Prototype 2 is a ridiculous power fantasy game that makes you feel like the most badass video game character ever. The open world is pretty well done, and the powerful abilities you get really feel thought out. Imagine these developers with modern tools and budgets developing a Superman game. It would be a dream come true. Sadly, I fear that this perfect match might have to remain in Dreamland though, because ever since Prototype 2 failed commercially, Radical Entertainment has gone through numerous layoffs and is now just a shell of itself, only acting as a support studio for other Activision games. God, I don't hate anything as much as Activision hates good games. But let's assume Radical Entertainment isn't a Chip of Theseus scenario and a core group of vets who worked on Prototype 2 are still with the company. I would love to see Activision give them the resources to develop a real Superman game. Since they've gone through a million different layoffs, maybe they can even open up their staff and hire some of the incredible modders out there who've been making their own Superman games, like Undefeated or that super duper cool Matrix mod from a few years back. I mean, if I were an executive and I saw these mods go viral, I would be contacting them immediately with a cease and desist. I'm just kidding. Hopefully if I ever become an executive, I don't end up like that. Instead, I would reach out and ask if they'd like to help work on an officially licensed Man of Steel game. Who knows, maybe Warner Brothers has already done this and has got something in pre-development behind the scenes. Look, ultimately, I guess this Superman game needs to embody the spirit of Clark Kent while also just being fun. Well, no duh, I know that sounds like the obvious, but I'm serious here. I don't need this game to redefine the open world genre or change how we view combat in superhero games. It just needs to be a good time with a fun story that accurately portrays this newly established DC universe. Is it possible? Yeah, I think it is. Sure, there will have to be compromises in game design and character lore, but I think that's fine as long as it's for the betterment of the overall gaming experience. Like, it's okay for Superman to not have unlimited health in the game as long as we still get that feeling of being ridiculously powerful, yet still having challenging but enjoyable combat. Now, is this likely to happen? At the moment, I'd say probably not, but if we were to finally get a modern Superman game, I hope it would follow a structure similar to this. But that's just another opinion on the internet, so I want to know, what do you guys think of my Superman pitch? I know it's easy for me to spell all of this out from the comfort of my gaming chair, but I get it. This would be a lot more difficult to pull off in real life. I know it's asking for a lot, but Superman is an iconic character who deserves nothing but the best. A character that is often imitated, but never truly duplicated. Either way, I want to hear from you guys. Do you think we'll ever get a truly great Superman game? What's on your Superman wish list? Do you have a specific developer you'd like to see take a crack at it? A specific genre maybe? I mean, maybe Superman games just don't work as big 3D action adventures and the IP should be developed with a different type of style in mind, such as a Telltale game. I don't know. I'd love to hear all of your thoughts down below in the comments. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. It means a lot. I appreciate you guys as always, and I will catch you in the next one.